Curly.
You're supposed to be right over there.
Yeah,
right?
on the
On the
flare.
All right,
I'm gonna show
we
it.
do have a quorum. Shall we begin? With the pledge of allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we approve the consent agenda, I'd like to move item 3, the upcoming Board of Selectmen meeting, to number 3 under business. It's the first thing, so 3A. With that amendment, could we have a,
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of November 26th at the Board of Selectmen meeting.
and I'll second that. All in favor? And, okay, so selectmen's announcements. There will be a Maine Department of Transportation public meeting to discuss a proposed installation of a new traffic signal at the intersection of State Road, Foster's Point Road, and New Meadows Road. And that will be on Wednesday, January 9th at 6 o'clock here in the West Bath Town Office. Is there public comment? Hearing none. Business item number 1. The Sabino Road Stream Crossing Grant, for which we need to apply for an extension. Christine, do you have anything more to say about that?
Not really, it's the annual extension that we agree to, just to make sure that we have access to the funds.
So,
And it extends it to October 1st of 2020, rather than July of 2019. So it gives us a little bit more time.
Yeah, good, that's good.
So that just needs to be signed.
Yes,
Anything new on the swamp? As far as engineering goes and permit process?
I don't think we've heard anything. We
No.
probably should give.
Nothing new at this point. We're waiting on this, I think, to move even further
Yeah,
along in the process.
give Bob a call sometime in the next couple of weeks.
Close it at the back.
Hmm?
You need a motion on that?
We probably should have a motion for that. It is official business.
I'd make a motion that we request the extension of the contract with the Maine DEP for the stream crossing grant. Termination date will be adjusted from July 1st, 2019 to October 1st, 2020.
And I'll second that. Any further comment? All those in favor?
So they give one line to sign, we're considered the provider. I can either sign it on your behalf, or the chair can sign it, whichever you prefer. You want me to sign it, Madeline?
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll send that off tomorrow.
I am expecting that you will be acting as town administrator in 2020.
I certainly hope so. That's my plan.
And on the next item on roads, the shoreline stabilization project at Birch Point. Catch us all up to date on what's happening with that.
I don't have anything new. I found this proposal in the file from July 23rd.
Right.
I didn't know if we wanted to move forward on discussions about the stabilization, or if we wanted to wait until spring, or if we need any additional information to include in the budget.
We would need information to include in the budget. We did authorize Mr. Prue to continue with that, to start to develop a plan. obviously at some point we're going to need to do that, but, we probably should get in touch with Mr. Pruitt and give him a nudge,
Okay.
so that we can have those figures starting for budgeting.
Based on what I've seen in the file, it was your plan at one time to take up Birch Point Road in 2019 and Sabino in 2020.
Well, I think Sabino was actually first on the list, wasn't it?
I thought so too.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
Sabino was on the list first.
Okay, that may have been reversed in the
Yeah.
notes.
Yeah. And because we've already started the process with Pine Tree Engineering on Sabino.
Okay.
David?
We should probably have Pine Engineering engineer it up, because if you're gonna apply to grants, they need to have a plan in place to look at it.
Right.
So Pine Tree should get going on that.
Yeah.
And then we apply for some grants with the state or federal.
So
Yes,
do we need
especially
to
on
get
Dream Crossing.
funding first?
No. You need to have it engineered first
Yeah.
for an estimate.
Well, it says Pine Tree Engineers proposes to complete the following basic services, and then they have an amount listed.
I believe we
Wow.
authorized that.
Okay.
So we have to get an estimate to apply for any grants. We just have to have a number. And hopefully there's some grants available that's on the river, ocean side of the river, so.
That would have been, either the last meeting in July or the first meeting in August.
Okay.
So we can check on that.
Has there been any more significant flooding or anything down?
No, it's not flooding on Birch Point, it's the erosion from the tide and the water hitting it, and it's washing away the road when it comes around the cove.
I was talking about on the outskirts.
Yeah, it's undermining, but I don't think there's been any significant flooding this fall on
No,
the
needs a good
swamp.
storm surge and the right wind, which you don't get this time of year.
That's good news.
No, no. But if we get some kind of estimate, we can apply for grants here and there and see if we can hang up and find something.
Yeah.
There should be some sort of emergency prevention grant, because when that floods, it will create a severe hazard, and we know it's gonna flood,
Right,
it
but I
does.
think you have to wait for it to flood and then get the emergency grants, unfortunately.
Well,
Yeah, they don't make it that easy.
need a contingency grant. It just doesn't make sense
I know,
that there's not
but-
money to repair a road that we know is going to fail.
I know state government, you gotta wait for it to flood.
Welcome to
and
state
then-
government.
There are some grants available from, that the town's notified, for erosion purposes and stuff like that, that should fit that niche.
Wow.
To look at the erosion versus, yeah, it makes fun.
Yeah.
You're down there, a bunch of boats push tide in.
Create great bakes in that little cove. Okay, so I think we've done everything that we can do on the road items. So let's move on to this, this is kind of a housekeeping thing, isn't it? With
Yes.
business item 2?
Yeah.
The assessor's return needs to be returned to the county treasurer.
We paid the taxes to the county, but neglected to forward the assessor's return, which needs to be signed by the Board of Selectmen, assessors.
They sent us a note and asked politely, so
Not chicken a lot of fish or two.
What, the proof is in the detail?
Business item 2B and C, the abatements issues. Christine, you're much more familiar with that, so if you would.
Yes, when we received notification from the Registry of Deeds that there were two deed conveyances filed with the County Registry of Deeds. So the assessor at the time took those deeds and did conveyances for tax purposes for the town of West Bath. The grantor that those conveyances came out of actually has a life estate on the property. So that would make these conveyances to John Travis IV and Ty Travis void until such time as the grantor is deceased. So what we're doing is essentially reverting the property back to the way it was when Staling first did the conveyance to Travis, reserving the life estate in 2011. So these abatements that you have before you and the supplemental will release the tax burden from Travis and put it back to Staling, which is appropriate at this point in time.
Right. So it's, again, a housekeeping issue from an inadvertent error.
Yes.
We should have a motion to grant those.
I'm just trying to make sure I get it all right here.
My understanding is it was a misunderstanding of the life estate.
I make a motion that we rectify a mistake that was made in a life estate that was granted to Staling. So we need to revert the tax that's being charged to John Travis and Kathleen Travis. Is it Ty also that he needs?
Mhm.
And Ty Travis back to
And John Travis IV.
John Travis, I don't see his.
There were two conveyances. There was one conveyance
Oh, it's
to,
on this side.
one conveyance to Ty Travis, one conveyance to John Travis IV. And then the remainder parcel was actually taxed to John Travis Jr. and Kathleen Travis, which was not correct.
Okay, so,
So those three parcels would be abated. And then there would be a supplemental tax
is there an easy
warrant.
way to say this?
Not really.
I'm getting it, I understand it.
Yeah,
I
so
know.
Well, when it goes.
do you
from-
have any questions about the
Oh,
process?
thank you.
Yes.
Or are you clear on it?
I understand what you're saying,
Okay.
I do have a couple questions.
So we make a motion first or question
Yeah.
first? Okay, so I make a motion that we approve this as recommended. What was that?
That works.
Okay.
And I'll second that. Further discussion?
Okay, now, with what you just did,
We haven't done it yet.
okay, those two conveyances are my boys.
Right.
Is that gonna void the deeds or anything when Mr. Salem at his demise? Will those deeds be good? Will those conveyances still be good?
I can't give you a legal
Okay.
opinion, but my understanding is if those deeds are still on record at the Registry of Deeds, they would still be valid.
Okay, that's
But
good
you
enough for
might
me.
want to consult your own counsel to
Right.
see if that's actually.
Okay, I'm good with that right now. The other
It's
question.
void for assessing purposes as far as the town of West Bath
Okay,
goes.
yeah, I'm very fine with that.
Okay,
The way the taxing was before, Mr. Stalin was taxed on the buildings, they were taxed on the property. Is that the way it's gonna revert back to, is the way that was? Cause that's the way it was.
no, they will not be taxed for the property.
It'll go to Mr. Stalin
Yes,
for everything.
yes,
Okay.
that's what you were expecting.
I
Wow.
didn't know what to expect, but
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
There may be some fireworks, but
Any,
Yeah.
any
that has nothing,
part,
that part
Maybe a
has
lot.
nothing to do with me, so,
any part of the property that was reserved as a life estate
yeah,
will completely revert back to Staling, including the tax commitment.
okay. Cause that's not the way it was over the past few years. So, they had a tax bill for they paid the land, he paid on the buildings, is the way it was. I was just, from my own knowledge, I just wanted to know what was gonna happen with that.
Mhm.
So, that part of what you're getting ready to do has no bearing on me, I was just worried about my boys, that's all,
Okay.
so.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? And the motion
Yes,
before us is to
I
approve
don't know, I think so,
In a nutshell,
yeah.
Dad got his way. But, that's the way it should be anyway.
Okay. So Robbie's paying for everything now,
Right,
as opposed to John is not paying
correct,
nothing.
correct.
Okay.
And this is,
The motion is to approve the abatement as recommended.
I was gonna say, the way I read this is what
Yeah.
they're asking for.
Right.
Okay.
Everybody seems to be in agreement on this. It's pretty straightforward. It's very hard to explain, but it's pretty
I was
straightforward
gonna say,
stuff.
it looks like that's what everybody's
It's just we're
recommending.
going back to 2011.
Oh, okay.
Okay, all in favor?
And these are the copies that you're required to sign. Hello.
You're too late, but you got what you wanted.
Huh?
You got what you wanted,
What do you mean?
the way it should be.
Well, he's gotta
We'll
pay
talk
for
outside.
everything.
Let's go to Ron. Is it going to Ron?
Yes.
All right, now, on to the next item of business, which is concerning the trio assessing package. Always an interesting discussion. Christine, you've done some work with Trio and you have some recommendations?
I do have some recommendations. Right now, we're attempting to use Trio for tax collection purposes. And we're using Vision for assessing purposes. Each of those programs are fine on their own. When you attempt to interface the two programs, there is margin for error that we wouldn't have to face if we use Trio exclusively. My recommendation is to choose Trio for both tax collection and assessing. The program won't have any issues conveying information from assessing to tax collection when we go to send out tax bills. This is part of the reason why we're having more abatements than maybe we ought to. It certainly enters into room for error.
The transfer.
Yeah, the transfer of information from Vision to Trio. You're having to go through all of the accounts and double check. Even when you do that, there's still margin for error.
Because the programs don't talk to each other.
They attempt to, but the information doesn't carry over exact. So, like we would hope that it would.
There's a little bit, maybe something different when you're using two different
Right. The programs are set up differently, and the information, the data does not carry over the way that we would expect it to. It's not as seamless.
And you feel it's appropriate for a town our size to simply use Trio and not Vision?
Yes, it's more appropriate. Vision is a program that seems to be designed for larger communities. I think for our purposes, Trio would be much more efficient and easier to use.
Is this going to be part of the budgeting process if we continue in this vein? Is there a cost in switching out?
There is a cost. We're probably going to have to carry licensing for both Vision and Trio for 1 year. So we would end up, let's see what Harris offered. Harris is Trio. And they offered us a purchase agreement for a total of $9,100, which includes the training and project management aspect for when we transition from one software to the other. The real estate assessing program itself is $7,000. The annual maintenance going forward would be about $1,600 per year, which is less than Vision. For Vision, we're paying, our annual licensing for Vision is $5,800 and change. So our annual licensing would actually go down in the future, but the initial cost for the initial year will probably be an additional $7,000 than what we're used to spending.
It certainly seems like it's worth investigating further.
I think if we go through the process of transitioning, it will help us to really look at the way we've been handling our assessing. Maybe find some errors or omissions or ways that we can handle our assessing program even better than we have been in the past. It's an opportunity,
Yeah, if we can reduce the number of abatements,
yeah,
would be,
and I really think we can.
Recover
And
its cost.
make the tax bill process much smoother.
So, this is not something we need to act on tonight, or is it?
Well, the pricing is just good until the end of this year, because the quote that they gave us, was from January of this year, and they said they would hold it until the end of this year. And it's something we'd like to move forward on.
But we haven't budgeted for that.
But we do have contingency for unplanned opportunities.
I'm inclined to think we should run the risk that the price will go up, because it just seems like
I understand what you're saying. The only issue with that is that we don't have an opportunity to fix our problems until after the tax commitment next year.
Right.
You know, we'd be missing that opportunity to just take care of it.
So that my hesitation is that this is just really fast. And we had a number of discussions about this that came to different conclusions within the year.
I have answers from Trio for all of the questions that were posed by Justin and other staff, if that would be helpful.
Yes,
Trio did answer those questions.
yeah, that would be helpful.
Let's see if I can locate that.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I only have one copy, but
I'll try to share.
Okay,
the bold are the questions that were asked and then the answer, well, or vice versa.
um,
What did you say?
okay, so the cost tables are built as needed. Tell me what that means in my language. I understand what the cost tables are.
Mhm.
So how, right now, the cost tables are done in Vision, right?
Correct. The cost tables won't carry over directly from Vision. What Trio would do is work with a town that's similar to West Bath,
The selectmen voted
to
to approve the
provide
abatement, so
the correct cost
Monday,
tables, and we would enter them into the
that'll
program.
get billed to Mr. Stanley.
Okay. So they would use the tables from a town similar to us,
Oh,
rather
no,
than
it starts
do
at
what we
5:30.
Correct.
Is that legal?
Well,
Yes,
there are a couple items ahead, so she probably wouldn't get to you.
yes, it
until
happens
6.
all the time.
Okay.
Yeah. No, and they're hashing out software. Yeah, well, she probably thought with the items ahead of you that it would take them a while to get through, but it did. So what'll happen is, well, you'll have to ask Julie if she'll cut you a check or credit the accounts. I don't know how that works as far as bookkeeping, but those parcels will be credited going back to, it sounds like 2011, I don't know.
That's what she said.
Yeah, and they'll issue a supplemental bill, basically billing Robert for those years. And going forward, he'll get. billed for
One of
those
the
years.
things that we had talked about,
The grandkids are not gonna be charged for anything.
as an advantage to keeping Vision, and it was not done in the transition of the town, but with Vision, apparently we could have the property cards online.
No, I'm just telling you what was
Is
said.
that something that we can do in Trio?
I didn't ask the question directly, but I believe so. I can certainly find out. I think they all have the capability
Well, how it
to do that
typically
now.
works is if you don't pay your taxes in
I
full,
don't know, they do.
on your property, and then
They
after
didn't,
you
couldn't have paid from last spring, they didn't.
Yeah.
No,
That was last
Surprise.
spring.
where this is.
I can certainly ask that
Yeah.
question.
It might be a little bit more lenient.
What is the outlay we're looking at
Typically,
money-wise?
taxes are due within 60 days of receiving the bill.
And that's being funded from which accounts?
Yeah,
Well, that's, the 7,000 is for the licensing, on top of what we already paid to Trio for licensing for the other programs that we have.
So what-
That's that portion of it. The licensing is 7,000. And then the training and project management for the transition is an additional $2,100.
It's like a 10 grand.
Yeah.
Where's the
So
10
they
grand
would
coming
take
from?
it because it's.
It would have to come from contingency unless we can pull it out of, you know, that budget category.
There isn't enough
And you could always
contingency.
step in and pay the taxes
No.
for it and return it
Budget,
to
what?
them.
It starts at 6,000.
But I believe.
And it's been used for something, I
The
believe.
taxes are going to be funded,
Um,
how much taxes are.
One of those accounts is just an emergency override, a $10,000 account, it's just an emergency override in case roads, assistance, major breakdown, whatever. It seems like a lot to
Yeah.
and not go through town meeting, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, so you could always
It feels like that to me.
pay, you can always pay the taxes just to keep it.
That's fine, and if you have other questions that you wanna ask of
Yeah.
Trio, it would be helpful for me to know
Yeah,
what other questions you might have, like the tax cards
yeah,
being on the,
And what did our assessment agent think of this?
Once he gets the bill, maybe he'll just have a heart attack.
What was his
oh,
thought?
we've all been talking about the staff at
the
support.
staff is supportive.
Yeah.
It just sounded like a non-budget item for town
Thank
meeting.
you.
Yeah. And what this would do would mean that we would go, have one more year of,
Yes,
if we chose not to do this.
that's correct.
And
Any indication what it might increase to?
What kind of increase?
what, if it's a approximately 10,000 today, do we have a clue, is it gonna go double or go up 50 cents or somewhere in between? There's no way really of knowing.
Go up to?
They should-
Oh, the quote? Oh,
They
yeah,
should
I'm
know.
not sure, I'm not sure.
But they should be able to, they should know by now what they're gonna get the first of the year,
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sure they do.
so we should ask
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can ask them.
and maybe if we specify that we need to take it to town meeting and that's our hesitation, maybe we'll be, take some pity.
Well,
Yeah.
it's worth finding out.
Yeah, yeah. I don't, I'm uncomfortable with having to make a decision this big all at once. I like the sound of it. That the staff is in favor of this is an argument in its favor. But it is a big budget item for us. It's still with some unanswered questions. There's no motion on the floor, so we don't have to table it. We can agree to come back to it.
I think this is probably an item, would be nice to have people here too.
Yes. So, let's put our, we can get back to you over the next couple of weeks with further questions that we would like to
Yeah,
have
that would be
answered.
helpful, then we can sort of button up, you know, what we
Right.
need to have answered and
Right,
move forward with the budget.
as well as a quote from them for
Yeah.
what it would require, for us to budget it.
Okay.
It seems to me that having it go through the budgeting process, even though it does mean that we would be another clumsy year perhaps, it makes everything much more open and above board and on the table. And it's simply easier to figure out where the funding is coming from.
Understood.
Oh, I regret in some ways. Just. Shall we just sigh and move on?
I think that might be the only sheet I have left, so can I take that, the questions and
Yes.
answers?
Oh,
Yeah, great, thank you.
All right. Business item 3, we need to appoint our registrar of voters. First off, so generally speaking, our registrar of voters is our town clerk. I think we should continue with that. Would we have a motion to approve Carly Perry as our registrar of voters?
I make a motion that we approve Carly Perry as our registered voters for the town of Weston.
And I will second that motion. Is there discussion?
You, sir?
All those in favor? And raised hands have it. Excellent choice.
Congratulations.
And we appreciate your service.
Yes, sir.
Who swears you in?
Christine can or Julie can,
That's good.
up until December. Well, no, she's the deputy clerk, so, yeah.
And then we appoint her.
And then I appoint her as my deputy.
Oh, okay. The other appointments are to the Comprehensive Plan Committee. And we have had Juanita Wilson Hennessy, Robert Weir, and Jim Williams, who have volunteered to serve on the Comprehensive Plan Committee.
And also Carl Turner, just came in today.
Carl Turner, we'll add him to the roster. So, this looks like a good meeting. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we appoint Juanita Wilson Hennessy, Robert Weir, Jim Williams, and Kyle Turner as a member of the Comprehensive Plan Committee for the town of West Haven.
And I will second that. And is there further discussion? Then all in favor? The motion carries. And I skipped my note to myself. And my note to myself that I just skipped. On the calendar, the next select board meeting would be normally on the 24th of December, which for many people amounts to a religious holiday. So there has been just some discussion about whether or not we should reschedule that or cancel. What thinkest thou?
I would recommend, if there's no pressing agenda items, that we cancel.
That's kind of the way I was feeling about it too. Would we need to have a meeting to sign the warrant, or would that just simply?
No, you don't have to have meetings, just as long as you announce it tonight, you can come in and sign the warrant.
Sounds good.
This is the way we've always done it. On Christmas, when the board comes in on when the board meeting comes on a religious holiday, the precedent is, there should not be any kind of urgent business during that week. If there were to be some, the office is open so that we would be informed of something that needed action immediately. So, that should work. Okay, then, the next meeting of the Board of Selectmen would be, that's a 2/18. Do we have a 2/19 calendar?
There's one in your folder. That would be the 7th, January 7th.
So January
Oh,
7th.
I'm sorry, the 14th.
Oh, January 14th.
Yes.
Will be the next regularly scheduled meeting. However, there will be the public meeting on January 9th. that's the next thing. So there will be no meeting on the 24th. The request for proposals for audit services.
There's nothing in there, I knew that you wanted to maybe talk about it, perhaps when Peter gets back, might be a better time.
Yes, I think so. So let's look at the budget calendar. Have you seen this,
No,
Mr. Chair of the Budget Committee? I'm gonna take a look. It looked fairly,
we have enough school board time.
yes, Christine and Emily and Keith Hines and I met last week,
Okay,
and this was discussed with the school board, and they felt that that time was appropriate. And that it works with their plans as well.
The only question that Emily and Keith had is whether or not they had to attend the March 11th Board of Selectmen's meeting, or if the Budget Committee would be willing to go to the school on March 6th to hear the reading of the school budget.
so when do you want the budget committee to start the process? February 13th,
Right,
and the first draft is February 25th?
yeah, I followed last year's timeline.
For the town.
Yeah.
For the municipal budget,
Right.
but not for, wouldn't be when we would be expecting all the committees and so forth to have their budgets in with it.
So when do you want the budget committee to make their recommendations?
We've usually done that,
April 18th.
Page 2.
which do,
Alright, so we get to the 18th to review the departments and the agencies and all that.
Right.
Okay, I didn't know we had a page 2 on the backside. I didn't see that.
You were getting nervous, weren't you?
I was wondering.
so we have, does that give the budget committee sufficient time?
Oh, sure, certainly does.
Well, I don't remember, do we adopt this officially, or, just,
Yes, please.
all right.
I make a motion that we accept the 2019-2020 budget calendar as law.
It's law. I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Do not break the law.
The budget as
I'll write it up.
proposed is written in stone.
Yes, yeah, I'm gonna send it out to everybody tomorrow.
And we have, looking forward to 2019, we have a proposal from the office staff for the holiday and office closure schedule for the coming year. So this follows pretty closely what happened in 2018, didn't it? With the exception of, we had talked a little bit about the 4th, Christina and I had talked a little bit about the 4th of July. Where is it? Thursday. So the fourth is on a Thursday. And it did seem to me that to give the staff, Friday, the fifth off as a gesture of goodwill and thanksgiving for them would be a good thing. Everybody's going to be doing Heritage Days anyway. Seems to me that the town and the city kind of come to a halt over that weekend. And otherwise, I think we followed the schedule as we have in the last year.
So can I just ask for this year, 2018 Christmas, what the hours are?
Christmas Eve, we're closed.
Right, Christmas Eve we're closed, that's the Monday.
Christmas, we're
Christmas
closed.
Day we're closed.
And the 25th?
And then New Year's Eve, the 31st, we close at 2. Although Julie mentioned that the bank closes at 1.
Right, it's unusual to be open until 2, but if that's what's on the calendar, we can certainly do that.
Yeah, she'll have to make the bank run.
Yeah,
Right, but it's the end of the month, so you have to wait until after we're closed, so there's a little disconnect there, but it's what it is. And know if we wanted to change that for next year, or?
yes, it is changed for next year.
Okay,
We're noon it next year.
okay.
That makes
So
sense.
it's all-
Yeah. I don't know why we decided on 2 last year.
We can close earlier if you like.
Let's close earlier. It'll make it easier to take care of the books.
Make it a little bit cleaner.
I make a motion that we close New Year's Eve at 12 o'clock.
And I will second that. Any further discussion? Then, all in favor?
And then do we need a second motion for that calendar?
Oh, yes.
Yes, and I think we should do that.
Thank you.
I make a motion we accept the 2019 holiday and office closure schedule as presented.
And I'll second that. All those in favor? All right, motion carries. Is there other? I had an other. Sometime in the last 2 weeks, a toilet has appeared on the side of the road at the corner of Hill and Berry's Mill, along with a couple of other items of junk. Now, in bigger places that have public works departments, you would call the public works department and say, please pick up the toilet. We have no public works department, but I would really like to have the toilet picked up. It bothers me.
I would say call your road commissioner.
I would say that too, but I wouldn't want to say that without further consultation with my fellow select board.
If he can't, or is it able, I'm sure he knows somebody with the trash. Could do that. So
Well,
I
he
just
could
think he would have to contact the
Deposit it in our
Not
trash
able or willing.
dumpster, too.
Yeah.
Conveniently located down the street from his house.
So I think,
Christine, could you ask the road commissioner if he would kindly
Yes, I will certainly do
perform that duty?
Yes.
If necessary, we could use the contingency fund to pay to have that disposed of at the recycling center, I'm sure.
Okay.
Another thought is on the boats at the Meadows Lake, are they removed? And there's 2 or 3 full boats on Mill Pond.
Yeah.
So we should check with Doug and see the status of those boats are, to see if they're removed or they're frozen in the ice and the town had paid for it.
Aha, that's right. It's not frozen, they're not,
The pond is frozen over, and the lake is frozen over.
oh,
New
So-
Meadows, where was the other?
The mill pond,
at the,
there's no.
at the, there's.
So that should be, someone should check with Doug and see what the status is of the boats. So we can check those out and see what's gonna happen, contact the owners and get them out of there, whatever, before they get really frozen in.
So, if you contact the owners and they don't remove them, do we have any authority to remove them?
I believe we do,
Yeah, I think it's in the order.
between that and the, state board, get involved too.
The ones on the mill pond, I haven't checked the lake, but the ones on the mill pond look like they're sinking.
Could be. It cost the town $1,000 a couple of years ago to get rid of boats.
Yeah, that's pretty common.
Yeah, but,
There's always harbor issues.
well, if we can try to stay ahead of it and get them out of there before it becomes a problem.
You will have thought. And then, we do have a request for an executive session. Could we have a motion for that?
Did I miss it somewhere?
On the back.
Make a proposal to enter into executive session pursuant to Title I MRSA 4056A for the purpose of discussing personnel issues.
Second the motion, and all in favor? Meeting, is adjourned.